When Mr. Park turned 82, his world shrank to the space between his bed, the window, and the old armchair where he used to read the newspaper. His legs, once strong enough to climb mountains with his sons, had become unreliable, trembling under his own weight. The doctor called it muscle atrophy. Mr. Park called it punishment for time passing too quickly. It was then, as he learned to live without walking, that three painful truths about his children revealed themselves. Slowly, quietly, like shadows that had been waiting for the light to fade. The first truth was that love changes shape. It doesn't always disappear, but it no longer feels like the warm, noisy devotion he once knew. His eldest son, Min Soo, lived just 20 minutes away. He used to visit every weekend, bringing his children along, filling the house with laughter. But after Mr. Park fell and broke his hip, the visits grew shorter, the laughter less frequent. Appa, you should really think about a nursing facility, Minsu said one afternoon, glancing at his phone as he spoke. They'll take better care of you there. I'm just so busy these days. Busy. That word used to make Mr. Park proud. His son had made something of himself. But now it sounded like an apology that had lost its meaning. He wanted to ask, too busy to sit for 10 minutes? Yet he said nothing. He only nodded, pretending to understand. That's how the first truth arrived. When you grow old and can no longer walk, love from your children doesn't vanish, but it becomes practical, measured in favors, schedules, and responsibilities instead of warmth. The second truth appeared on a rainy Wednesday when his daughter, Hai-jin, came to visit. She stood by the sink, cleaning dishes that had already been cleaned, talking about how hard it was juggling work and family. Mr. Park listened quietly, grateful for her presence. But when she started talking about inheritance, not rudely, just cautiously, something inside him cracked. She asked if he'd thought about selling the house, since it's too big for one person anyway. He looked around at the walls filled with memories, the pencil marks measuring his children's heights, the faint smell of his late wife's cooking that still lingered after all these years. This house raised you, he wanted to say. It's the only thing left that feels alive. But again, he stayed silent. Later that night, he realized the second truth. When you grow old, your children start to see your world in practical terms. The furniture, the property, the future. To them, it's about planning. To you, it's about holding on. You will want to be remembered for your love, but they will focus on what remains when you are gone. The third truth came quietly, through the youngest, Ji-hoon, the one everyone said was too soft. He had always been the dreamer. Yeah, the one who failed exams and chased art instead of stability. For years, Mr. Park had worried about him the most. Yet when the others grew too busy, Ji-hoon was the one who showed up. He didn't bring expensive gifts or big promises, just a small bag of groceries and time. He'd sit beside his father, talk about the neighbors, and sometimes say nothing at all. One night, Mr. Park asked, "Aren't you busy? Don't you have your own life to live?" Ji-hoon smiled and said, "I do, Appa, but this is part of it." That's when Mr. Park understood the final truth, that love, in the end, is not about who succeeds or who sacrifices the most. It's about who stays. When you can no longer walk, you realize your children's hearts are not equal in size, nor should they be judged by the same standard. Some will love you from afar, with guilt and excuses. Others will love you quietly, through presence, through care, through the simplest acts that ask for nothing in return. Weeks passed, and Mr. Park grew weaker. He spent long hours by the window, watching the trees he'd planted decades ago sway in the wind. Sometimes he'd hear Ji-hoon in the kitchen humming an old song his mother used to sing. In those moments, he felt peace, not because everything was perfect, but because he finally saw his children for who they truly were, imperfect, but human. He no longer felt angry at Minsu for not visiting enough, nor resentful toward Hai-jin for talking about money. They were simply living their own lives, just as he once did when his parents grew old. Life had come full circle. On his final morning, as sunlight filled the room, Mr. Park whispered the words he'd never said aloud. Don't blame them, just love them. It was not a lesson he'd read in any book, but one written by time itself. Because when you grow old and can no longer walk, you don't need all your children to understand you. You just need one to remember you, one to hold your hand, and one to stay until the end.